one and all to the future of news. Bitcoin is here now when the dollar is through. Start stacking those sats and make it habitual. We all deserve to be sovereign individuals. Time to hear from Sean and get our fix of the day. Get on the standard now because
this is the way.
We were meant for this moment since the day we were born. Now sit back and enjoy. It's good day, Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is pumping and it's looking to break $69,000 any minute. It could happen on stream. Another Australian bank had major issues last week. Commonwealth Bank initiated double spends from customer accounts. Many people are waking up with their accounts overdrawn, money missing, or totally locked out. The ECB, they've declared war on Bitcoin, claiming early adopters steal economic value from latecomers, and Bitcoin should be regulated to prevent the price from rising or be outright banned. The SEC, on the other hand, they have approved Bitcoin options on the CBOE. I've brought on a very interesting guest today. Ari helps people buy and sell yachts to stack more Bitcoin. Might be something in there for you to be able to accumulate a large stack in a very short amount of time. And then we have Putin saying that BRICS will adopt digital currencies. Before we get into the news, we've got so much to cover. Ari, how are you this morning, mate?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Sean, for having me on. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really exciting conversation, especially when we get towards a bit of a banter at the end. I think you've got some really great ideas, how people can really supercharge stacking their sats. There's a couple of things and want to dive into what you're doing, buying and selling yachts. But before we do, we had a major bank over the weekend. This is one of our top 4 banks, Commonwealth Bank of Australia. They're duplicating payments and working to revert. And they are trying to work to reverse incorrect transactions. This has been sorted now, but it just goes to show the banks aren't safe. This is a post by Tyler Green. By way of their closing banking book, Satoshi solved the double spend problem and released the accounting upgrade into the wild in 2009. This shouldn't even be a thing. We'll dive into that a little bit more in depth. We do have the ECB saying no coiners won't have fun staying poor. We've got a lot to cover right there. The SEC has approved New York Stock Exchange options trading on all spot Bitcoin ETFs. As well as that, they have approved them for the CBOE stock exchange. And if you're not bullish now, ladies and gentlemen, now's probably the time to get pretty bullish. We are sitting at, if I bring it up, full screen here in the background, 68,811, 69,000 back in play. But I think one thing that everyone will find a little bit interesting is Bitcoin price, post-election performance. The line in the middle is when the elections happen, it's just up and to the right. So I think we're going into a pretty exciting time. Before we get into a little bit of a rip, I'm going to hit refresh here. I'll start the stream, 68,621. We're doing the research. If we hit refresh this morning, we're about the same, 68,678. Looking to break that $69,000 level. Last 24 hours are higher, 68,860. If we have a look on the big green button in the background, it is a little bit higher, $200 off or $194 off, breaking that $69,000 level. And a lower 68,088. Huge move over the last week, Ari. Lower 62,513, a higher 68,860. That's over $6,000 in 1 week. We're talking about $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 moves on this channel in 1 day to the upside and to the downside. But Bitcoin breaking 69,000. We're coming up to the election. We've got some bullish news. We've got some bearish news. How are you feeling about Bitcoin in general at the moment?
Very relaxed. I feel very, very relaxed. I got to be honest. I try my best not to watch the price too much because I have to, honestly, it's not trying to be better than anyone, but I have noticed that I've been like sometimes just locked into it and I don't get anything done. It's just far too exciting sometimes, especially when you start, you know, when I mean last cycle when we were with the wife, every 10,000 it went up. I would go and buy like an expensive bottle of champagne and we'd do it. And then it was running up so quickly that it was like, it seemed like I should be buying cases as opposed to just buying one at a time. But yeah. But look, it's fantastic, isn't it? I think it's much more fun, I guess, now than it is during the depths of the bear. I wish I stacked a bit harder in the bear, actually, to be honest. But yeah.
I think for all of us, once it starts moving, we're like, oh shit, like I went as hard as I thought I could, but no, looking back, I probably could have gone a little bit harder, probably should have gone a little bit harder there, but sounds like a pretty cool time. It sounds like maybe you're partying 24/7 last bull run, because it's just like a ramjet. Hey, when it starts moving, it starts moving.
Absolutely. I think there's probably going to be a whole lot of new people for coming into their first cycle, and this is probably the funnest part. You've got to keep your head a little bit, not FOMO in right at the top. There will be a top at whatever point it is. But if I can say anything to your listeners, I have FOMO'd in the last 2 cycles at the top, and I'm still doing okay from that. So
yeah,
I'm giving advice for the things that I actually did, but one of my biggest purchases was at the top of the 2017 market. I threw basically everything I had at it, and then obviously I looked pretty stupid after that. I dropped everything in at 16,000 American, and then I think it went down to at one point below 3,000. A year and a half later. It always comes back, always comes stronger and better, and now I feel really clever. Now my wife thinks I'm pretty smart.
Yeah, I think time vindicates us, but in the short term, we can always be wrong. And most of the time, I think in the short term, we are going to be proven wrong. But it's a good feeling, hey. Like I've been buying as high as 73,500 and as low as 3,300, and I'm still buying at the moment. Did a big stack at about 68,000 last week, or 67,500 or 300 thereabouts. And I think after a certain amount of time, you're like, well, we can still exchange fiat. It's still good. I guess that probably leads us into what the ECB put out over the weekend. It's pretty dystopian. And you had a pretty good take on it. Tur did a bit of a thread on it. I'll race through the thread. It's pretty short, and then we'll dive into a bit of a longer article, and then we'll get your opinion, Ari, and just your thoughts. But Tur de Mista. Number one, this new paper is a true declaration of war. The ECB claims that early Bitcoin adopters steal economic value from latecomers. I strongly believe authorities will use this Luddite argument to enact harsh taxes or ban check thread for why. So number two, rather than praising Bitcoin as a tax paradigm shift, a la petroleum and the internet, the authors introduced the blatantly Luddite argument that early adopters increase their real wealth and consumption at the expense of latecomers. In absolute terms, early adopters exactly increase their real wealth and consumption at the expense of the real wealth and consumption of those who do not hold Bitcoin or who invest in it only at a later stage. The new Lamborghini, Rolex, Villa, and equity portfolios by early Bitcoin investors do not stem from an increase in the economy's production potential. Rather, they're financed by diminishing consumption and wealth of those who initially do not hold Bitcoin. This redistribution of wealth and purchasing power is unlikely to occur without detrimental consequences for society. Even if the latecomers cannot attribute their loss of purchasing power, they will feel a malaise and frustration that will continue to further to an ever more split society. It's insane. Number three, then they go on to brazenly advocate for legislation to prevent Bitcoin prices from rising or to see Bitcoin disappear altogether in order to prevent the division of society. In any case, current non-holders should realize that they have compelling reasons to oppose Bitcoin and advocate for legislation against it aiming to prevent Bitcoin price from rising or see Bitcoin disappear altogether. Latecomers and non-holders and their political representatives should emphasize that the idea of Bitcoin as an investment relies on redistribution at their expense. Failing to do so could skew election results in favor of politicians who advocate pro-Bitcoin policies implying wealth distribution, fueling the division of society. A few more things here. Author also model some projections to illustrate the paltry amount of Bitcoin that will remain available for latecomers. Woe is me, conspicuously left out is the reason that has driven 15 years of Bitcoin adoption development. It's simply better tech. 5, in all the years I've been monitoring Bitcoin, this is by far the most aggressive paper to come from the authorities. Gloves are off. It's clear that the central bank economists may see Bitcoin as an existential threat to be attacked with any means possible. 2 more things. Many of us have warned that this was coming. Bitcoin as a major political fault line, both in national and international elections. Well, here it is. It means that us holders must take protection to ensure that governments respect our basic rights to hold property. No, this won't be a war between haves and have-nots. Rather, this will be a historic clash between those who stand for the natural rights of the individual, those who clutch at the failed ideologies of collectivism and central planning. Couple more things from Coin Telegraph, and then I'll get Ari's thoughts here. So the ECB paper claims older Bitcoin holders now exploiting holders. Since its introduction in 1999, the euro has lost approximately 85% of its value against gold due to monetary inflation. Recent paper published by the ECB, October 12, 2024, claimed older Bitcoin holders profited at the expense of new holders and argued that the scarce decentralized currency should be regulated to prevent its price from rising or outright banned. The authors claim those who acquired Bitcoin at an earlier date or those who bought at market bottoms and sold to new investors at a profit were exploiting the new buyers. This, of course, is how all financial markets work. Investors aim to buy assets low and sell high. From this foundation, the authors concluded that Bitcoin should face strict price controls to prevent exploitation and the ensuing civil strife from this unfair wealth distribution. Any case, current non-holders should realize that they have compelling reasons to oppose Bitcoin and advocate for legislation against it, aiming to prevent Bitcoin prices from rising or see Bitcoin disappear altogether. Ari, to me, that sounds like it's pretty tyrannical, pretty dystopian, but it's also confirmation that Bitcoin is number go up technology. It is freedom technology. To me, it looks like they're panicking, but what are your thoughts on it?
Well, it comes to, first you deny it, and then second you fight it. Oh, I'm not sure exactly how the saying goes, but that seems to be where they are in that cycle of things. And ultimately, it doesn't really worry me in the slightest. I don't want to be apathetic to these kind of things. The ECB is a powerful entity, and they're not to be besmirched by any means. But at the same time, what honestly can they do? They would have to change property rights, and I think a lot of people would be really, really against that. So, am I concerned? Not really. I did see the authors of the two authors of the paper. They wrote a paper in 2022 in the depths of the bear, basically saying that this was Bitcoin's final death throes. So the same authors saying Bitcoin was dead, Bitcoin was over. So obviously these two gentlemen in particular have a vendetta against Bitcoin. It was a failed technology in 2022. Now apparently it's so powerful that it's going to disrupt the entire world and steal value from every single living entity except for hodlers. And because this is what I think what they're basically doing is they're not valuing Bitcoin for what it is, which is, in my opinion, and it's a shared opinion by many people, it is a savings technology. That's primarily what it is. Now it's giving outsized gains at the moment because there's this arbitrage where when people are figuring it out. And so of course there's going to be people who think that the value in the future is not what we see it, and they're not going to value it currently, so they're not going to buy it now. Okay, and so if they're going to, as the famous saying goes, you get it at the price you deserve. So if you haven't undertaken the time to understand it and get into it, then you're going to have to pay for it later, and that's just the nature of it. But that's the nature of all assets. Every asset is like that. We're from Australia. If our parents, actually both my parents aren't property owners, but a lot of our parents are property owners, and it's a lot harder for us as younger Australians to get on this property ladder. Is that necessarily them stealing value from us? No, hardly. That's not the point. And then ultimately, the best, I guess, rebuke I could say for this entire thing is that people benefiting from Bitcoin who are old school hodlers doesn't take away from the fact that anyone who buys Bitcoin, whether it be now or whether it be 50 years in the future, is going to see incredible value from just making that purchase, because it's pure savings technology. It's going to transport the value of the work that you do today into real goods into the future whenever you feel that you want to transfer that over, and you're not going to lose value, and you'll probably get a little bit of value too. Not like that we have in the past, but certainly a little bit better than your savings account. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what people like the ECB is starting to wake up to, is they love having the infinite money printer. They like being able to use dollars to be able to manipulate people's minds, voting, the elections, just the economy. and to be able to change the interest rates and pull all their levers and play all their silly games. And it just distorts people's future, I guess. Like if they print a whole lot of money where the world doubled the money supply over the last 4 years, we could have had $100,000 in cash, and now it buys $50,000 worth of stuff. You've still got $100,000 in the bank account, but the purchasing power is like abysmal, and that's not going to stop. Like I had the CIO, Scott Phillips from the Motley Fool, on last week, and he's not a Bitcoiner. Hopefully he reads the books. Hopefully, I urged him to read the Bitcoin Standard a few times. I don't think we came to a conclusion. I don't think he agrees with Bitcoin, but what we both did agree on is all governments around the world are going to continue to debase the money forever and a day. It's not going to stop. So it needs to go into hard assets. Well, for me, what's the hardest? It's Bitcoin, and it sounds like you're there as well. I just want to transition quickly over to the Bitcoin Way. They are the channel sponsor. And the reason why they are the channel sponsor is they can help you become a free sovereign individual. So whether it's banks are failing or the ECB is trying to ban Bitcoin, if you hold Bitcoin in self-custody and air-gapped wallet, especially KYC-free Bitcoin, nobody can get in the way. They can't stop you spending it. They can't confiscate it. You become ungovernable. You become a self-sovereign individual in every single way. So the team at the Bitcoin Way can lead you through that process. Run an air-gapped wallet, running your own node, getting a second passport if you need to, in a different jurisdiction that maybe has better tax laws, that's a little bit better for freedom, as well as that inheritance planning, multi-sig, and so much more. I've put a link at the top of the description. The first 30 minutes is free, but if you've got Bitcoin on the exchange, or you live in Europe or anywhere in the world really, and you just want to get a bit of a health check, reach out to the Bitcoin Way today. So while we're on the topic of the European Central Bank, Commonwealth Bank is one of our top 4. Last week we had Westpac and St. George go out for about 3 days, which is another top 4 bank. We've got this disinformation bill, Ari, I'm sure you've heard, where the government's trying to pass it through, and it's basically to censor freedom of speech here in Australia. One clause that went in there, which have been calling out a lot, is you're not allowed to warn people that the banks are not safe. If this law was to come through, I could not say, get your money out of the banks. They are not safe. Anything that could cause economic instability, or just awareness that the banks are frankly reserved, anything in COVID. They said that they want to shut it up, which is pretty interesting when you have Westpac last week, St. George last week, and the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, towards the end of last week. So I'll dive into what this article here has to say. CBA, sorry after glitch drained some customer accounts. Commonwealth users, they couldn't access funds. They had overdrawn accounts following an error, which caused unexpected duplicates of transactions. I got a message. I did have heaps of double spends in my account as well, which, Ari, I'm pretty sure that's what the bank said they're there to solve, was the double spend problem. That's the whole point of the banks, to be able to have it in. Obviously, we've got a decentralized protocol through Bitcoin that actually prevents double spends. But before I go further with the article, what are your thoughts around the banking institutions in Australia, worldwide? Should you be leaving in money in there? Are they safe? Just in general, how do you see the traditional fiat slave system?
Well, in the end, I think there's banks. For me, they're two separate, I guess, conversations to be had. Whether you have fiat, which is unbacked by anything except for the word of the government, and then you have banks who are custodians of wealth in some degree. So, I mean, banks have existed for as long as we've had money, and I think banks themselves can operate in a way that works. However, in combination with fiat, what we've had happen is the creation of the fractional reserve. And this is the big problem. So I think banks can be really, really helpful. There would be a time in the future where I would carve off a portion of my stack and I would leave it with a bank just in case. Just so that if something were to happen to me, and of course, there's ways you can self-custody and leave instructions to your wife, your kids, or however to help out with your stack. But just knowing that there's a way that my own fallibility is covered would be helpful to me. However, I don't want them to then lend out that Bitcoin in 10, 15, 20 times. There's in some of the US banks, they've now removed, it used to be they had to hold 10% of cash that they're lending out on reserve. So if they're lending out $1 billion, they've got to hold 100 million. Now that has been reduced to zero. So of course you can see the issue here. This is obviously why they're introducing this law into Australia, because they don't want bank runs. They don't want all of a sudden banks going to zero because all of a sudden they can't pay their treasuries, they can't pay their bonds back, and then they need to find some liquidity, and then all of a sudden all these deposits are being pulled out and they're left high and dry. So really, at the end of the day, the way I see it, it's really scammy. It's really untruthful to the populace. The average person doesn't understand that. They don't understand actually that you don't actually own that money that you've given the bank. All they've given you is an IOU to that money. So that's a big issue. I mean, I'm probably just repeating broken money or Bitcoin Standard or something like that at this point. So I'm probably preaching the choir to a lot of your audience. But my take is that banks aren't inherently bad, but the way that they've changed over the years to do what they're doing now is bad, because inevitably it's going to be a house of cards that's going to fall.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'll just dive into the rest of the article here. So what happened is, well, first they're working hard to reverse these transactions. Matter of urgency. Any fees will be refunded. The statement said, "We're sorry for the inconvenience. Thanks for being patient with us." Deducted amounts had all been refunded shortly after 5:30 p.m. on Saturday. I can confirm, at least for my bank account, that had happened. All those double spends were back in there. But a new statement said that the process to reverse these transactions has been completed. Incident prompted a rash of online complaints from customers across the day. This one person here, me and my partner are now stuck in Queensland, unable to get to the airport because our cards are overdrawn. One reply on X said, "We're going to miss our flights. This is a disgrace." Other customers expressing their frustration. I think it was maybe like 13 months ago, roughly, maybe a year ago, the top 4 banks, there's an article that I've brought up several times, did warn about escalating cybersecurity attacks that are hitting the top 4 banks all the time, and we could experience a total bank outage. And from that time, I just speculated, what if it starts to happen around the time of the elections? A little bit of chaos. And I feel like sometimes, and this may be a little bit too tinfoil hat, but a lot of things come over here in Australia. They try it first before shipping it out to the US just in time for the election. But in the last week, we've seen Commonwealth Bank, we've seen Westpac Bank go down, and its subsidiary St. George go down, have issues there. As well as that, we've had Optus and Telstra issues with our telecom communications providers. And at the same time, or pretty much the same time, the same thing's happening over in the USA as well. Do you just think this is a coincidence, or that the banking system is just so fragile, it's just sort of those tremors before the major earthquake and this house of cards falls down?
Yeah, I don't really believe in coincidences, to be honest. I would need to know a lot more about it before I want to make a big call. But absolutely, it's fragile, and I mean, it sits on a tech stack that I have no idea about. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know. I don't know who is involved as a middleman. I don't know, and this is the problem. This is exactly the issue. Is it really? It's obfuscated behind a fog of war, which we just have no idea what actually happens behind the scenes. All we know is we can't buy our flights to get home from Queensland. This is the issue, and this is the problem that I think is going to have to be solved with banks if they want to remain solvent in the future, because people will start voting with their feet when they start seeing better things come online with the second layer solutions that will come through for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think like Lightning and Liquid, they're not totally perfect, and we don't have the adoption, but it is very functional. It works. I buy a fair bit of stuff over the Lightning network. I receive payments in Lightning as well. But how do you reckon we go from where we are now, say like in Australia, or first world countries that aren't really looking first world at the minute? How do we go from where we are now, where the banks sort of work all the time, people will have an experience like they did with Commonwealth or Westpac, or any bank where they get locked out, double spend, blah, blah, blah. And then the bank makes it right short term, and then they just go back to normal because they buy the propaganda. How do we get there where people are so asleep to what's happening to actually Bitcoin adoption, and they start to vote with their feet? Is it conversations like this with friends and family, or how do we get that movement and how do we get adoption to continue to increase? Because we've got the option here. Bitcoin, its number go up, but it, as you're saying, it's superior savings technology, and it just works. And at times like this, it doesn't go down. It's there for everyone to be able to use in a situation like this.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be a long process. It's not going to happen anytime soon. But primarily what's going to happen is that Bitcoin's going to appreciate more and more. The volatility is going to reduce. And then at some point, a company or some banks are going to promise that whatever they're offering as a currency will be backed by Bitcoin. So if you're able to use their digital currency of sorts, and whether they peg it as in combination to the local fiat currency or to their own token that they're going to put out, like I think JP Morgan's already doing their own token. And if you can start using that sort of thing for purchase, but knowing that you can redeem that for something real, and then you can actually see on chain that they've got that kind of backing, then inevitably there is going to be some sort of banking crisis where there's going to be a large bank run. I mean, Bank of America, just recently I was reading a tweet from someone I can't recall, but it was very clever in the sense that they'd shown that at one of Buffett's famous stockholder meetings, he'd put up a big sign basically calling out Bank of America, because Bank of America had said that their bonds were now going to be held to maturity. They said, "Oh no, we're just going to hold our bonds to maturity." Now, because they're deep underwater with their bonds, so they're in the black. They're in the red badly. They are badly in the red, and they have huge unrealized losses. Now, for them to say something so I guess arrogant as to say we're going to hold our bonds to maturity, that basically says that, well, how are you going to solve a liquidity crisis? Well, you have to sell your bonds if you need to come up with cash to pay back your creditors. So there is going to be an issue, whether it be Bank of America or something else, where there literally is a bank run. And we already saw it last year or the year before, was it? With Silvergate and the like, but it was well contained. But I think it's only so long you can do that. And we all talk about it often, us Bitcoiners, but basically they back themselves into a corner and there's really no way out of it. It doesn't matter whether they're hawkish or they're dovish, they drop rates, they raise rates, they do this, they do that. They've kicked the can too far down the road. Eventually, there's going to be a bank failure. To come back to your original question, that's going to be an opportunity. There's going to be an opportunity for some really clever banks. Maybe it's MicroStrategy, maybe it's BlackRock, maybe it's JP Morgan, and they're saying, look, this is undisputable, mathematically proven. You can look at it. You don't need to trust anyone. All you need to see is on chain, we have this many Bitcoin. We've distributed this many tokens. That is real money you can bank on. Now, we can't use Bitcoin's first layer. We know that. Liquid and Lightning, as you say, it needs some work before it's going to be able to be utilized in the way it is. So we'll give away a little bit of our control, I suppose, and you will have to apply a little bit of trust to a company or an organization to cover that. But at least it's auditable. At least we can actually see ourselves that they're doing what they're doing. Now Commonwealth Bank, we have no idea what they're doing behind the scenes, and they're not going to tell us. I hope that answers the question. I sort of went off on a tangent there.
Yeah, sure. I just got distracted really quickly. We are at $69,063. Let's go. It's nothing like a nice 69 to be able to start your day or end your day wherever you are. I wonder if we'll hit 69,420. It's something that I want to screenshot. That's for sure. Like yourself, Ari, the price. I look at it obviously every day for the stream and stuff, but once I hop off and do my video, I just really don't pay attention. I think what's really important is how much Satoshis do we have? Do we have more today than we did yesterday? But these numbers, 69,000, and we hit a new all-time high. When we hit 100K, it is something worth celebrating, because it vindicates us. It lets us know that our conviction was right. We've thought through it properly, and it's just Satoshi confirm, and I think that we're on the right path. I try to get through the news in 25 minutes. We're at 29 minutes, so I've got about four more articles I want to race through. No, it's all good. It's been such an epic rip through those real quick. And then I want to dive into some ideas that you have that people can make an extraordinary amount of fiat dollars to be able to accumulate Satoshis, which is pretty much my mission, everyone's mission. I think it's always interesting to hear different ways, because people are starting to realize $69,000. It's starting to run. So the quicker people can stack that fiat, provide more value, get more value, and then stack that sats, I think the better off they'll be. But let's race through the articles real quick. So the SEC, they approved the New York Stock Exchange options trade and on-spot Bitcoin ETFs, which is pretty massive. Diving it into a bit more, New York Stock Exchange and the CBOE, they win SEC approval for Bitcoin ETF options. The decision follows NASDAQ recently also getting permission for options and spot Bitcoin ETFs in the USA. We just see we're below $69,000. So if you 169,000. If you can smash the like button, we'll get it back. Somebody just smash the like button. Well done. And if we vibe, hit subscribe. We will give you the news with the fast facts. But let's dive into the SEC. So the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, which is the SEC, approved stock exchange rule changes that permit the listing of options tied to spot Bitcoin ETFs, broadening the investment ecosystem around products that receive billions of dollars of inflows this year. According to two memos, or memos, however you say it, I call them memos, from the SEC published Friday afternoon, New York Stock Exchange will be allowed to list and trade options on the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, Grayscale Bitcoin Mini Trust, and the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF. On the CBOE in global markets, they got approved to list and trade options on the Fidelity Wise Origin Bitcoin Fund and the ARK 21 Shares Bitcoin ETF. Options, they're derivatives that allow the purchase or sale of an underlying asset, in this case, Bitcoin ETFs, at a predetermined price on or before an agreed upon date. Many market participants believe that options trading on Bitcoin ETFs will increase institutional interest in crypto and increase overall liquidity. So the options are bringing in more liquidity. Money prints is about to fire up, bring more liquidity, and then like total change of events. We've got Vladimir Putin. It is dubbed over. I can't verify that it's 100% factual, but it sounds like he's saying that they are going to adopt digital currencies as well. He's talked about using Bitcoin as well. I'll play it 33 seconds.
Want to come up with the discussion.
And just to let you know, it only comes through one of your speakers. For me, it's coming through on my left ear.
The use of digital currencies in investment developments by BRICS member states inside the group, and also in the interests of other developing and emerging economies with good prospects. And we are to come up with a toolkit that will be under the supervision of the respective BRICS institutions.
I think that's pretty interesting, but we'll carry on. I won't bring him up today, but Pomp did a pretty good job shutting down the reporter. I might save it towards the end if we've got a bit of time after a bit of a rip. Shutting down that Bitcoin is a superior savings technology. Max Kaiser, he's calling for $220,000 in play. Max is always bullish, but it does line up with another analyst that we'll get into in a second. But first, block height, 866,593. On the block clock here, or time chain calendar, 68,934. But we are at 69,000 with the big green button there. So I'm taking 69K at the minute. We've got a new block, 866,594. Sats per USD, still above 1,400. Is at 1,600 last week, 1,451. Market cap is trending up quite a lot. It wasn't long ago, like 2 weeks, maybe two and a half weeks. We're at 1.23. Now we're at $1.36 trillion. Fee rate, anytime's good for UTXO management. Priority is up there, but not as high as it was last week. Please, if you haven't already, sort out your UTXOs, especially if you are looking to move any Bitcoin this cycle. Hash rate down 10% in the last 24 hours. I expect this to go up tomorrow with the price increasing back above 69,000. Bit of speculation, but 15 to 20%. It would be my guess, but we'll check in tomorrow. We're at 9.6%, 9.66% down 24 hours. Average block time is running pretty quick at the moment, 9 minutes and 41 seconds, but the average is 9 minutes 36 over the life of Bitcoin. So pretty much where it needs to be. Now let's just dive in to this one guy with price targets. We've got one more thing after this, and we'll jump into a ripari. 3 signs Bitcoin's parabolic phase with the 250K target is about to begin. Bitcoin whale accumulation, chart technicals, and declining stablecoin dominance hints at a Bitcoin price bull run ahead. We are, coming up to the election. We are in October. Everything's sort of coming together as we hoped it would, as we thought it would. Fundamentally, Bitcoin appears well positioned to enter a bull run cycle for the remainder of 2024 and beyond. I think literally for the rest of our lives when we zoom out. But meanwhile, certain technical and on-chain indicators suggest a similar upside outlook. Bitcoin price will hit 100K in 2025, Fractal suggests. Chart marks Bitcoin's historical bullish phases, such as the 60x increase from around 2011, 20x increase in 2017, 6x increase during the 2020-2021 bull run, which sort of got cut short, but we can't control what happens with the black swans, China banning Bitcoin. But as of October 24, Bitcoin was exhibiting signs of breaking out of its prolonged consolidation phase, which often signals the start of a bull run within the parabolic channel marked by 2 red dashed lines. You can see that here. This is on Cointelegraph. He argues that Bitcoin's parabolic phase has started aligned with historical patterns of rapid price acceleration. Old mate's Fractal analyst, I didn't want to butcher his name, predicts that Bitcoin will rise above 100K in 2025 and 250,000 in the long term. Ari, you've been here since 2017, stacking sats, been through a couple of bull markets, couple of bear markets. Now, do you feel like history is starting to not repeat, but rhyme? Is it sort of feeling like we are going into a parabolic upside?
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe I'm a little more jaded this time. I'm not really like I think last bull run I thought that was it. I thought that it was taking off. It was never coming down. The whole world was going to go crazy for it, and it was that was that. I was contemplating not ever working again. Contemplating becoming a home carpenter, making wood at home and giving it to relatives for Christmas presents.
Yeah,
but this time around, I've just got so much conviction in what Bitcoin is. So it will go up for sure. It will come down again for sure. And then all I'm going to try and do is I'm just going to try and stack sats basically. This time I'm going to try and do it a bit better, because last time again, even last cycle, I still FOMO'd. I think, what did I put in? It was someone like, anyway, I won't talk numbers, but I think it was about 48, 49K just after Tesla made their announcement, and I was just like, I said to the wife, we got to get everything in there. We just threw basically everything at it. So it's everyone says it, and I never take on the advice of other great people who've got better minds than I. But you really just got a dollar cost average in this thing. Make your monthly purchase, and don't worry about it. You go on with life, and it's just going to take care of you so well. So. Yeah, I'm excited for sure. I mean, I'm going to feel pretty smug when some big price targets get hit, and I'll probably get a phone call or two. But
no wonder like old school OG Bitcoiners to like stay humble, stack sats, because it can be a little bit hard to stay humble when you like really do everything you possibly can to get people to read the books, put in the proof of work. And Bitcoin's not that complicated to understand. It takes a bit of time, people are going to have to put in 100 hours. And you realize that. So you're like, come on, like, please study Bitcoin, buy a little bit, learn about it. Because if if they buy $5, they're going to start to watch it. Maybe it goes down 20%, 36% or something. They're like, what the hell is this? It's so volatile. But then they start to put in the proof of work and they start to get it. Or some people, they just totally ignore it. And then, it hit $69,000, which was the old all-time high. And if they get the call, it's now a good time to get into Bitcoin. Yes, it is, but you're going to buy, and it's probably going to drop instantly. Just be expected. But it is. it's nice, it's validated, it's a little bit of a wank on, but I think all Bitcoiners everywhere, once they get it and they grok Bitcoin, they're like, this truly is the best monetary asset that's ever existed in human history. I may not be the nicest trying to get you to buy, but I am trying to be kind and lead you to do your own research, like show you the path. This is the path, but ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to walk it yourself. And then, like you're saying before, everyone gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. But let's talk about Bitcoin. So there's many ways to be able to earn fiat dollars or provide value to the world. And the more value I think we provide to the world, the more value that comes back to us. And even if that is fiat, the more fiat we have, we can turn that into Satoshis at the moment. I think it's 68,838. It's a pretty good deal. So you buy and sell yachts, which is pretty interesting. Let's dive on into that first, just a little bit of your backstory, how you got into it, how that came about. And then you had a brilliant idea how people can really like supercharge their stack, especially for the younger people, maybe a little bit of time, not sure what their next career move is. But I'll bring out full screen, Ari, and if you just want to dive into the buying and selling of yachts and how you got into it, you don't need to talk about numbers if you don't want to, but just give people a rough idea of how lucrative it possibly can be, and then we'll dive into your second idea as well we're talking about.
Yeah, so I do a few different things, mainly in the super yacht industry, and ultimately the biggest money you can make in this industry would be essentially doing what I do, which is to broker deals for yachts that are either being built, they're new build yachts, or they're yachts that are that someone else is selling and then someone else wants to buy. And we call it the yacht brokerage market. And essentially, I'm a yacht broker and I broker those deals. I also do project management, which is to represent the owner through a new build project for a super yacht. And it can be really, really lucrative. And just we'll give you some figures. So just say you sold a 30-meter yacht and you represented the owner, and the yacht was 10 million euro. It's always big money when you deal with yachts. So a 30-meter yacht, you as the representative of the owner, in the best case, well, let's just say just an average case scenario, the average sort of person, you'd probably be looking at about 300,000 in commission so 300,000 euros for that kind of deal. Now, are those deals hard to find for me, who's just starting out? Yeah, they're really hard to find. I've only been doing this a few years, but the guys that are well entrenched, they're doing. Some of these guys are doing yachts that are far bigger than that, and they're doing 10 of those a year, and they're just making so much cash doing that kind of stuff. Now, to do this kind of job, I would suggest that you have a very good foundation in yachting, or alternatively, perhaps you do something else as a career. Like, for example, the network of people you know is far more important than actually the knowledge of yachts, funnily enough. It's ultimately a people business, and if you have a big network of people that can afford those kind of things, then you're in the right position to sort of go and become a yacht broker. Your little black book can be extremely valuable. If you don't have a big little black book like myself, and you got to go out there and shake hands and play a lot of golf, then you got to wow them with your yachting knowledge. I got the start in it as crew. I worked on super yachts as crew, and that was ultimately one of the best jobs I ever had. It's actually the best job I ever had. It was such an incredible experience, traveling the world, getting paid fat stacks of cash. I think one summer, I made 45,000 euros in tips. You know, like you just make ridiculous cash. Yeah, you can just make such great money doing it. And it was ultimately really, really fun. It was just a really, really good time. I had to cut my career short. I had an injury on board, and it was right in the middle of COVID, just terrible timing. And it led me to, because of COVID, I couldn't get the surgeries quickly. And so it just sort of drew out the whole process. In the time that was happening, I decided, oh, look, I might not be able to go back to work on the yachts. So I did a diploma in yacht brokerage. And I was lucky enough to land a client pretty quickly, and then things started from there. So that was really, really cool for me. But I still miss the industry. I think it's a really, really fantastic job to have. And I'm actually trying to really strongly advocate for people who are Bitcoiners to go and work in the industry. I just think working on yachts is basically the best opportunity to stack sats I could possibly think of.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I was on there for 7 years, and just the amount of cash, no expenses or anything. But if you want to dive into why particularly working on super yachts or luxury boats or cruise liners or just working out at sea for extended period of times is an amazing way to get an experience, life knowledge, life lessons, and then actually get some wealth behind you.
Absolutely. No, if you were just starting out, or even if you're not starting out, say you've already got a decent little stack, and I'm 37 years old now, so I know that I could come into the industry at my age, and I could, if I was brand new, and I could make it at my age. I do think there is an age limit on it eventually. I don't think that people in their 60s will probably be able to handle it. It's it's a very physical job. However, if you're in good shape and you want a new lease on life and you want to stack sats, and there's a great opportunity for people to go into yachting at any age, in any experience and anything. I mean, there's really a space for everyone. All you need to be is a person that can smile under a bit of duress and just get along well with people, and you'll do well. Everything else you can learn. Hi, Chad. And then so my sort of feeling about it is if you've already got a bit of conviction in Bitcoin, the simplicity of just simply investing a little bit of your salary from yachting means that you don't have to worry about picking stocks. You don't have to worry about trying to get deposits for houses and then going and looking at houses and whatever. It is simply the best way to invest. So you can just lead your beautiful life working on yachts, making great money. You'll be able to invest at least, it would be easy to invest 2,000 euros a month, and you could just stack sats. And if you did that for 10 years, the time would go past like that because you're having such a great time, and you'd be independently wealthy after that. You might even be able to get a little yacht of your own after that. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think if you work on boats, like I worked on them for 7 years out on the Great Barrier Reef, and like yourself, Ari, is the greatest time of my life. Like, we look out the islands and the reef and stuff, and every day I just long to be back on the sea. It's just truly a remarkable way to spend a lifetime. And like you're saying, 10 years goes by in the blink of an eye. 10 years is going to go by in the blink of an eye regardless. If someone's not 100% sure, or they just want to do something so exciting, I'm with you, man, 100%. You've got no rent, obviously. Like, I'd spend six to 9 weeks out at sea at a time and come back for like 2 or 3 weeks. Depending on your age, you could stay at a hostel, or you could get like an Airbnb, or you could get just like board a room and stuff, which is what I was doing, is just boarding a room in an apartment, very cheap rent. I was paying for it when I was out at sea, but it was such little amounts of money, and then I could rent it out to other crew members when they were on their time off.
Oh, cool.
So there's super easy ways to be able to do it. They pay for all your food, like the experiences. You get to go to like destinations, that multimillionaires, decabillionaires are like aiming for. You're on their boats, and you're surrounded by those people. And I think sort of when you were talking about brokerage and having a little black book, working on super yachts, especially, and you earn £45,000 in tips. Those people are high net worth individuals, and they're almost like a captivated audience. Like, you want to jump in and jump out, and you don't really want to be in their way, but they've got time on their hands. And successful people, I find, are very willing to share their story. And if you can build a bit of rapport, that's another name in your book. And if it's one guest each trip, or one guest every 10 trips or whatever, over a 5-10 year period, that book can build up amazingly. But then you know boats, you learn about boats, what's going on, what makes a good and bad boat, and sort of what those type of people are after for their experiences, because then you can go and speak their language. What are some of the sort of other takeaways? Like, it reminds me that you're sort of the quintillionaire effect. It's not necessarily what you know, but who you know with your black book. So I guess, how did going from the boats to then going as a brokerage dealer, what are some of the lessons that you learned being around those high net worth individuals to then be able to sell onto them? Because sales is the most important skill somebody can master alongside communication.
Yeah, definitely. The thing I think that is important, I guess, when you're talking to the people that there's different levels. There are different levels. So, for example, the guys I used to work for when I worked on yachts, these guys had a sort of a net worth upwards of $10 billion. And these guys are, like you're saying, well, after some time, the barriers come down a little bit. And, you know, I had great rapport with the bosses that I worked for. These are quite different people from my clients currently. My clients are much sort of more approachable, not at that level of wealth yet. Some of them have aspirations to be, but you know, those yachts that I was working on were sort of $100 million yachts, whereas the yachts that I'm sort of dealing with now are much lower on the scale. So you've got these people. Generally, they're a bit younger than those guys, but ultimately, I think what people like that share, regardless of whether they're worth, you know, $50 billion or 50 billion, is that if you can just reduce the amount of, I guess, bullshit that comes out of your mouth, there's an instinct to just fill spaces with conversation sometimes. But very, very rich people tend to be very, very busy people, and they kind of just want to hear exactly what they just want to hear the facts. They want to hear the details. And if you can get that in your head when you're talking with them, I find that they want to have you around more. And ultimately, if you're wanting to be in any sales kind of job, you want them to want to spend time with you, because ultimately they can choose anyone to broker the yacht deal. They're going to choose the person they like. They're going to choose the person they enjoy spending time with. And when they say, hey, you want to come to my yacht in Saint-Tropez and we can talk about yachts, you're like, yeah. So you go down there, you go on the yacht, and then you might not talk about yachts for 2 days. You know, and then finally it's just like, oh yeah, okay, let's talk about yachts. And you just got to give it to him. Give him the details that he wants, you know, and don't fluff around with it. Don't fuck him about. And that, I think that level of authenticity matters when you're talking to just people like us, normal people, and then the people who've just peaked at the top of the business world. If they can feel that you're authentic, they're going to want to buy from you.
Yeah. I'm having an experience at the moment, Ari, because I really value open, honest conversation, and for someone just to speak the truth or what their truth is. And I may disagree with that, but I just want them to be able to call it how they see it, not fluff around and stuff. And this person is not a high net worth individual. They're actually in debt. And contrast that to like pretty much every Bitcoiner that's put in, you know, they've gone through one cycle or not even one cycle, that's put in the proof of work, or high net worth individuals, people that build businesses that are very successful. Like you're saying, they just want the fast facts, or they just want to know exactly what the details are, what they need to know with no fluff, so they can make an informed decision. They can then ask questions, and then they can go to the next step. It may be to buy, it may be to get more information, or whatever it is. So I think, you know, if people take that away, you know, if you're new on your wealth accumulation journey, the more truth that we can speak, the more bullshit that we can cut out, the better off everyone is, you know, that people don't need to listen to your bullshit, and we can go forward. I want to read through a couple of comments here. I've just started a couple, but shout out to everyone watching live, watching the replay. We are back at $69,000 again, just over 69,018. If we vibe, hit subscribe. You will get news with the fast facts 5 days a week. Got some really exciting things coming up this week. Have Fred Krueger on tomorrow as well. I'm going to troll him about the fucking power law because it will be broken. What are your thoughts on the power law?
Look, I very much advocate for the, you know, all models will be broken at some point.
Well,
you know? Yeah. Look, I think it's, but I also think it's exceptionally vague. You know, if you look at it on a chart, it looks really good, but then you're like, well, it could fall anywhere in between. I don't know what it is, but could fall in between 350,000 to 75,000. You're like, okay, well, it's not really very helpful, is it? So, look, I think there's so much effort that people put into understanding those things, and I think you're better off just doing something else of value and just trying to swap that for some fiat and then swap that fiat for some sats. You know, why do you waste your time? Like, I get it. There's an audience for everyone, but you know, anyway, that's
yeah, I get it as well. And when it comes to the power law, even the stock to flow, I love them. because they're an amazing marketing tool. People initially come into Bitcoin or shitcoins for that matter out of greed. They see these charts just go up and to the right, like the power law, or the stock to flow goes fucking parabolic. Great, that's amazing. People get in there, this number go up, technology. But as soon as you've grasped that, okay, that's great. Let's provide value and be able to stack more sats. Looking at the power law, it's not going to help people time the tops and bottoms. Maybe people like Giovanni and Fred Krueger, 100% it will. They're fucking math nerds. They're whiz kids. They're operating at such a high frequency. They're in the top like 0.0001% of people in the world in that field. They truly understand it. For them, it's great. But for the 99.9% of people, probably better off, like Ari's saying, is to be able to stack sats. Let's rip through a couple of comments, and then you've got one more thing to bring up. But we've got Justin Cross here. The ECB is threatened by the existence of Bitcoin. Italy to raise Bitcoin capital gains to 42%. Europe is trying to stop Bitcoin adoption. This might be in America's future if Kamala wins. What are your thoughts in regards to Trump versus Kamala? Is it going to be better or worse? Does it really matter? Are the politicians going to save us? Does any of it actually matter if your Bitcoin's in self-custody?
No, absolutely not. If your Bitcoin's in self-custody, it really doesn't matter who's in power. I mean, there's always the argument that the worse the person is that's in power, whether that be Kamala or Trump, whoever you believe. I mean, if I was to choose a camp at this point, I'd probably be leaning towards Trump, just because I'm a lifelong, I'm a very liberal person, but it seems over time the ability of society to realize that doing things for yourself and being sovereign is not nearly as valuable as it used to be, according to people of a more liberal mindset. It's a real shame that that's sort of gone that path. And so then I look at someone like Trump, who I don't really have many positive things to say about him, but at least he I mean, we share a lot more, we share a lot more things than Kamala does, and than the Democratic Party at the moment. But to answer your question, I don't really think it matters. And you could also make the argument that the more disastrous the president, the faster it's going to accelerate Bitcoin adoption. Yeah, it's inevitable. Really, it's just going that way.
Yeah, slowly then suddenly. I think where we are now, like save a Black Swan event or Jeff Booth, as long as it stays decentralized and secure, Bitcoin adoption truly is inevitable. And I guess it's just making sure. Please just have it in self-custody. If you need help, the Bitcoin way, watch BTC sessions on YouTube, read a book, reach out to people, get it off the exchange, having an air gap wallet, just look after it because it's just time. I think that's most important. But then we've got Lurker in the chat there. Good to see you this morning, Lurker Strats. Anyone who is even slightly conspiracy-minded knows how the real fight between us Bitcoiners and central banks, the governments of the world, and the current system will get really nasty short term. Yeah, it looks like it's heating up there. What are your thoughts, Ari, in regards to bankers and stuff? Is it worth like trying to get your politician to fight for what's fair and for what's right, or are you just like, nah, stuff this, I'm going to take like that libertarian mindset, 100% self-responsibility, I'm going to take accountability for my stack, for every action, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, and do that? Or are you also going to be like, hey, this is unfair, we need the politicians to be able to fix it for us? And or you just be like, I'm just going to opt out, I'm just going to take care of myself, and then I can take care of those around me, my friends and family.
Yeah, I think everyone's got a role to play in this, and it ultimately depends on the person. Me personally, I don't even think when I was living in Australia, I left Australia in 2015, but I don't think I voted once. I don't even know if I registered to vote. Now, I'm not saying that. I think voting is great. I think it's really, really amazing that democratic societies have the ability to have a say in who governs a local area or the country or whatever it may be. However, I think we do need people that do feel that they have the desire to advocate. The people who get up there and they go on every podcast and they speak, Lynn Alden, all these other people that I think are fantastic. Yourself for running a podcast. You guys are really important for making sure that the message is still getting out there, because there's work to do. If people like you didn't exist, then I think Bitcoin would have been dead in the water. Wouldn't have happened. It needed to get to a certain level And now I feel there is an inevitability to it, but the conscious work of all these advocates is going to accelerate the process. So it is important. Me personally, I've tried to advocate in the past, and I felt either I'm not very good at it, or I just need to. Well, I just don't think I was very good at it. I found it very frustrating. It's very hard work.
I just approach it like sales, Ari. Like even having Scott Phillips on today, there's a pretty high probability, like a 98% chance we'd walk away still disagreeing, him not liking Bitcoin, me thinking he's going to have fun staying poor for not liking Bitcoin. And ultimately that's where we ended up, and maybe he'll read the book. And if he does, great. If he reads the Bitcoin Standard, like I really advocated about 5 times, and then after the show, maybe he changes it, maybe he doesn't. But when I'm approaching people or trying to orange pill people, I'll just go try one person. If they don't get it, move on to the next, And I just really approach it like sales. You're not going to sell to every single potential prospect, but you will get one person across the line. And that one person may then go on to orange pill like another 100 people or something like that. So it doesn't matter if I fail 99 times. If you can get that one person to just put in the proof of work, and I just say to them, Bitcoin's going to go up for the rest of your life regardless. You can buy it or you can't buy it, or you don't need to buy it. That's totally up to you. It's your money. It's your choice. Or it's your currency. It's your choice. You're not holding any money. But failing to read and understand what it is and not make an informed decision whether to buy it or not, that's on you. And if you don't read the books now, you're truly going to regret it. So I'll try as many ways as possible. And I think, the best way I've found is Beers for Bitcoin, because it's so small. It's like a 4 to 6 hour read. I definitely believe people should read the Bitcoin Standard. It is the Bitcoin Standard. It's the best book. It's going to give people the greatest idea. But I tried handing out so many copies and people would hand it back, not even being able to get through a chapter. Their brains would be fried and they're like, this is too much. I'm like, all right, start with Beers for Bitcoin. It's a solid foundation. You'll get a pretty good idea. It's about 100 hours condensed down to 4 to 6. And then from there, some of them have gone on to read the Bitcoin Standard. Some haven't gone on to read the Bitcoin Standard, but a lot of those people have gone to buy after reading the book. So that's all I try to do is just find whatever way they can get it, whether it's a podcast or a book or a news article, whatever touchstone speaks to them, do it. Sometimes it'll be an interview that I've done. Like if I go talk to someone that's into boats, I can send them this podcast. Otherwise, it might be one like with Lawrence Lepard or Greg Foss, depending on what their mindset is. Maybe it's someone like Tony from the Bitcoin Way that has a little bit more of a libertarian view set, someone that's willing to fight back against authority and do what is right. Or sometimes it won't be. Like if I'm dealing with like a fairly left-leaning, politically leaning female, I find it's better to send them over to Natalie Brunel's channel. She's just a little bit more grounded in the middle, and it's not left versus right, where I guess I'm more center right. And I just know my message won't resonate, but I do understand that for people to get Bitcoin, I believe it's the most important thing that people can do, for their future. Or they can rely on the state and they can own nothing and be happy and eat the bugs. But fuck that for a life. It's really, really not good. Got a couple more comments. I can't wait for Bitcoin Buddha. I can't wait for the narrative to emerge about how people need to hand over their stacks because government's the only entities responsible enough to handle the volatility of Bitcoin. I think they'll try whatever it is. This is funny. Tennessee Eco Man, I truly hope it is. I can understand how the conversations with the wives go. Ari and I were talking about this backstage, buying at different times, buying at the tops, buying at the bottom. So it's nice when we sort of hit the old all-time high. If we hold 69K by bedtime, then I'll win the bet with my wife. Wish me luck. Hopefully there's a nice reward there for you, Tennessee Eco Man. Now, Ari, if a website that can help people. I don't know too much about it, so if you just want to go into that, what you did, it's a free resource, I believe, and it's just you putting in your proof of work there for people.
Yeah, that's it. I've created a this year. I've put quite a lot of effort in. I did quite a bit of work learning a bit of coding, a lot of Chat GPT help, and I put together a website called the Yachty Academy. So I'll ask Sean to pop that into the bottom of the video so people can
I will straight after we finish.
Lovely. So the Yachty Academy is I'm building it, and it's basically around learning all the ins and outs of getting into the yachting industry, and then also creating a community around the yachties that make the industry what it is. So currently you can come onto there, you can become a member, you can join up, you can have chats with people, you can talk to me directly. We've got, I think currently 1,200 members or so. So there's a lot of yachties already on there, and you can just start asking the questions you need to ask about how to get established as a yachty and how to get into the industry. And I'm going to be building into the site some video courses and things to help you along, just to understand all the steps and processes you need to do. You're also, of course, always welcome to reach out to me directly. I help a lot of people just understand what they need to do. Yeah, there you go, the Yachty Academy. And yeah, it's all free currently. I am building, what I'm trying to do is get actual yachties who are on board yachts to build courses on there, and they may choose to charge. They probably will. They won't put it together unless they're charging. But that'll be available to you. And there's also a lot of jobs on the platform as well that people can apply to directly. So if jump on there, have a look around, follow me on there. Obviously my name's Ari, so just search for Ari and you'll see me, and just have a chat, and I'll tell you everything you need to know about getting jobs on yachts and getting one of the best careers in the world for stacking sats and traveling the world.
Yeah, I couldn't urge anyone enough. If you're drifting in life, or you're just sick of whatever bullshit fiat job you're doing, working at sea, it's not for everyone, but for me, it was the most glorious time of my life. I still miss it every single day. I spent 7 years, consistently on the yachts out at sea. It's freaking amazing. The amount of cash that you can save and the amount of tips. Like in Australia, we have no tipping culture at all, but a lot of the people came on were from America, and the boat would say, hey, you don't need to tip people. And then I just built up so much rapport with them. They're like, I know that we're not meant to tip or something, but like, here's a sneaky 100 or a couple of $100. And you're like, cheers, thanks very much, all in cash. And it's just the greatest way to be able to stack very little expenses, great people, great conversations, amazing destinations. But the Yachty Academy, Ari, I'll put in the description as soon as we close out the live here. But I'll put you up full stage, final thoughts, and then we'll get out of here. And I just bring up the price one more time. It is pretty bloody exciting. 69,246. I think Tennessee Eco Man's going to win the bet with his wife, which is bloody good news, mate. A nice way to be able to finish out a Sunday or start a Monday, depending on where you are in the world. But Ari, over to you, brother, if you want to round it out. Any thought in any area as it relates to Bitcoin or life in general, but basically with the point to be able to stack more sats, or what you think is coming?
Yeah, ultimately, I think, look, keep your eye on the prize. Keep working, keep doing things of value, and then transferring that value into sats. And you're just going to basically be setting not only yourself up, but your family up, everyone that is around you that you love and care for, that you can't, maybe like me, you can't talk them into being Bitcoiners themselves, but at least you can do the work for them, and then create your own little sovereign state of wherever you live in the world, and you'll be protected by the best saving technology on the planet. And and do it if you want in the yachting industry.
Absolutely love it. Everyone, buy Stack and Chill. If you haven't already, hit subscribe if we vibe. We do have Fred Kruger on tomorrow. It'll be an interesting debate on the power law and his big Bitcoin book. That's really what I want to talk to him about, because either read the books or eat the bugs. It's your money, it's your wealth, it's your future. The quicker you can get Bitcoin, the better off you'll be. But Ari, I'm going to play an outro. If you just stay backstage, we'll have a bit of a chat. Everyone else, be blessed. Do something nice for yourself, for somebody else out there. A quick message about today's sponsor, the Bitcoin Way. If you still have your Bitcoin on an exchange, or you're using a hardware wallet that's not air-gapped, it's not open source, reach out to the Bitcoin Way. First 30 minutes, it's free. The team has over 25 years cybersecurity experience. They can help you take your Bitcoin into self-custody. Safety in a moose. the author of the Bitcoin standard, endorses this team. They'll never touch your keys or your coins, but they'll empower you to become self-sovereign. They can teach you how to run a node, can assist with multi-sig, cybersecurity, inheritance planning, running VPNs, and so much more. And the team, they can even help you obtain a second passport. Bitcoin, it's generational wealth. Learn the skills today. I've put a link at the top of the description. And again, the first 30 minutes is free.